Erik and Lyle Menendez, two brothers convicted of murdering their parents in 1989, claim they have new evidence to prove their parents abused them and that their murder convictions should be vacated. I'm Angenette Levy, and thanks for joining us here on Law and Crime. The trials of Lyle and Erik Menendez were as high profile as you could get. It really captured the attention of people across the country.
It's time for the world to know the truth.
And now, thanks in part to a documentary on Peacock, the case is being thrust back into the spotlight. Erik and Lyle shot and killed their parents, Jose and Kitty, at their home in Beverly Hills in August 1989. Erik was 18 and Lyle was 21. At first, the brothers claimed burglars must have killed their parents while they were out at a movie. Jose Menendez worked in upper management at RCA Records at the time, and the family was incredibly well off. Prosecutors later charged Lyle and Erik in 1992 with killing their parents, claiming the sons wanted their parents' money to themselves so they could fund a lavish lifestyle. At trial, the brothers said they endured years of abuse, sexual, physical, and emotional, at the hands of their father, and that their mother enabled it. Some of Erik and Lyle's family members testified about the abuse. The siblings said the crimes they committed were manslaughter, not murder. The first trial ended in a hung jury, the second in a conviction and life sentences for Erik and Lyle. Now the Menendez brothers say new evidence shows they should be released from prison. That includes Roy Roseo, a member of the popular 1980s boy band Menudo, coming forward to say that Jose Menendez raped him as a child. Menudo was represented at the time by RCA Records. In a new petition for a writ of habeas corpus, the Menendezes have included a handwritten letter that Erik wrote to his cousin Andy in 1988 discussing the abuse. I spoke with famed criminal defense attorney Mark Geragos, who is part of the team representing the Menendez brothers, about the history of the case and why they believe they should be released.
Let me tell you what happened, at least from my standpoint. First trial was defended by Leslie Abramson. Leslie is, when I was starting out, was one of the heroines of the criminal defense, a superstar lawyer. She was just phenomenal to watch in action. She tried that first case, and the half of that jury, the jury hung with a mistrial was declared, but half of the jury found that they did not commit a murder. And when I say they did not commit a murder, they were hung between murder and manslaughter. And the main reason for that was the abuse. There was front and center in the trial. It diminished the notion or element of malice. So then a mistrial is declared, and guess what happens? In the interim, O.J. Simpson is acquitted. And literally days later, they go to trial, the second trial. There's a new prosecutor within the DA's office. Some wags said David Kahn, who tried it, was thought to be Gil Garcetti's biggest threat for his reelection. So what he did in kind of a Machiavellian move is he put David Kahn on the retrial of the Menendez brothers, and they were able to convince the judge to exclude all of the abuse. So not only was the second trial gamed, so to speak, by not having the ability to argue and to present evidence of the abuse, but even more unfortunate for the boys in justice was that the DA, David, made the argument in closing that it was just an excuse. They were privileged, affected white kids from the Valley, basically, who just didn't like being grounded. I mean, that was they diminished the abuse, and he called it the abuse excuse. Interestingly, what happened since is, first, there was a letter that was written by Erik 8 months before the killings took place. That letter was to his cousin, and it described, it's horrific, and it's attached to our filing. I think you probably read it. It'll shake you up as a mother, and I know it did me as a parent. That letter goes to his cousin. His cousin tragically passes away. All of his personal effects are then with one of the other relatives and tucked away. Nobody ever looks through it. They then find it most recently The letter is, I think, devastating and shows that it was not contrived after the fact. Then what happens is you've got this NBC Peacock documentary that comes out, and it turns out that there's now one of the band members from Menudo, which was a band on the RCA label that Jose Menendez was president of that label, was alleges that he was molested by Jose Menendez. You combine the two of those together, you've got about as good a corroboration as you'd ever want, and it's about as good factually about as good a writ of habeas corpus as I've seen in next month doing this 40 years.
And just so we're clear, and so we explain this, a writ of habeas corpus, you're basically saying that someone is being imprisoned unlawfully, and you essentially kind of sue the warden of the prison where the person is being held. So we've read the filing. We see what's alleged inside. What's the next step?
The next step, we filed it. We've attached all the exhibits. We've presented, I think, a compelling case, and we're hopeful that the Superior Court judge, this is in the LA Superior Court, will issue an order to show cause or direct the DA's office to reply to this. And so a number of variations can happen, but we're hoping to at least get a hearing or an order that will give us a hearing. And somebody much more clever than me said, think about this. If this case from the 90s was tried today, do you think for a minute that somebody would exclude the abuse? It wouldn't happen, not in today's milieu. Back in the 90s, I can understand it, combined with a district attorney who was under siege after an acquittal on O.J. Simpson and did not want another high-profile loss. Then take this. Somebody else said to me the other day, if these were the Menendez sisters instead of the Menendez brothers, they would not be in custody. I mean, they've been in 33 years.
Erik Menendez is now 55 years old. Lyle is 52. And despite both brothers serving life without parole, they've both married women who live on the outside. I reached out to the LADA's office for comment. A spokesperson tells me that they've received this petition and it's under review. For Law and Crime, I'm Angenette Levy.